And there we go. So do you want to kick us off, Dipali, or do you want me to kind of run through here?
Is my audio is audible, listenable, or how it is like it's
You're okay.
noisy for you guys? I'm
No, it's
okay.
not too
Good.
bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, so I can start with it. Thank you so much, Lisa. And hello, everyone. My name is Dipali. I led the allyship at Women in Streaming Media. And welcome to our Ally of the Month call. Women in Streaming Media spans globally, and with the different time zones in mind, this call is recorded for the convenient viewing, ensuring everyone can learn. Let's start on the time to ensure we cover everything. Every month, we have the Ally of the Month call to recognize and celebrate the efforts, highlighting the individuals in the industry who actively support diversity, equity, and inclusion. Also, to build an inclusive culture to enforce the importance of the allies at work in creating a supportive and inclusive environment. Also, acknowledging the impact, demonstrating how individual actions can contribute to positive change at workplace, and also create awareness. Use this session to help everyone to understand the concept of allyship at work, emphasis that allyship is everyone's responsibility, and be it individual actions, interpersonal actions, or structural efforts, everyone has to work together for this. It also helps us to share the best practices, provide a platform for allies to share experience and strategies that others can adopt, and encourage the positive behavior, motivate others to take similar actions by showcasing the real examples of allyship at work. It also create a kind of continuous engagement in terms of keeping the conversation around the DEI efforts, ensure that it remains the priority throughout the year, not just at one phase of the year. And it also first collaborate the it also foster the collaboration, connecting employees with like-minded individuals across the teams to encourage the collective efforts. Um, let's start with the agenda. As always, our call is packed with exciting content. First, I will give you the quick introduction about the Women in Streaming Media Network and our allyship program. And this is specifically for the new members because every month we get the new members. Next, Lisa will introduce you to our Ally of the Month. Following that, we will engage in an exciting session on AI with our Ally of the Month. And feel free to ask any questions using the chat window during the session. And finally, we will conclude the call with sharing our upcoming event details. So let's get started. Let me quickly introduce on the who we are, what we do. As a global networking organization, our mission is to increase the diversity and give the more visibility to women leaders within the streaming media industry. We believe education is the key to personal, professional success, and we inspire the next generation through engaging outreach activities. Our education pillar empowers women in streaming media by offering the resources and opportunities for growth at every stage of the career. Through our speaking engagements, members are given platform to feature their expertise and contribute to industry discussions. We have been instrumental in placing the female leaders across the globe in keynotes, panels, webcast, and podcast. Mentorship, sometimes it's best way to reach our potential is to learn from someone with the similar experience. And we have the award-winning mentorship program that is based on foundation of educate, connect, and empower. Our membership is free for everyone, offers the opportunity to connect with a supportive community of women across the globe in the streaming media industry. It also gives the access to a community to connect with other women in streaming media or video technology, broadcasting, OTT platforms, and related industries. We launched the allyship program in January 2024, and we are creating a network of allies to lead by example, amplify the women voices, and support their representation in the streaming media industry. Our allyship program is a center of Women in Streaming Media Network. Allyship at workplace is important aspect for fostering an inclusive environment for all the employees. It involves the individuals' active support for the women, creating a sense of belonging and promoting diversity. It also helps us to raise the awareness about challenges women face at the workplace, fostering the inclusive work environment. And it also recognizes that allyship is about taking the meaningful steps every day, not just the one action. It also sets the benchmark for other men, showing how to be effective allies at work and advocate for the women with individual, interpersonal, and structural efforts if you are at a leadership role. We would love to see more leaders in the streaming media industry stepping up to lead by example, amplify the women voices, and support their representation. The best part is our allyship program is a flexible structure. Like we can conduct the AMA session, panel discussions, workshops, and knowledge sharing session, such as today's session. Okay, all right, the wait is over. Let's dive deep into the ally of the month. Lisa, over to you.
Okay. All right, let's just dig right into this. So, as the media industry shifts from experimentation to full-scale adoption of AI technologies, our ally is leading the charge in using AI tools to not only innovate, but also to empower diverse voices and perspectives. So today, we're talking about AI as an ally. I'm so excited, where we will learn how Microsoft AI tools are transforming workflows, driving innovation, and opening new opportunities for women in streaming media. We will discover how AI is not just a tool, but how it can be a partner in allyship, helping women in the streaming industry unlock their potential. With innovation on the horizon, we will explore cutting-edge AI technologies that are shaping the future of streaming, from personalized experiences to new content creation possibilities. So today, let's celebrate how AI is advancing allyship and shaping a more inclusive and innovative future in the entertainment world. So with that said, I'm thrilled to share with you our presenter today, Andy Beach. Andy is a digital media expert with over 2 decades of experience in the intersection of technology, creativity, and business. As the CTO of media at Microsoft, he spearheads cloud AI and edge strategies that are transforming how media and entertainment companies create, distribute, and monetize content. A published author on video compression and a frequent speaker at global industry events, Andy has been pivotal in driving partnerships with major organizations like the NBA, Disney, and Fremantle. His strategic leadership and effective communication are key to building relationships and pushing forward innovations that are redefining the future of media. So a little bit about Andy on a personal note. He is a family man with a beautiful wife. He has a daughter adopted from Ethiopia. He has 2 dogs and 1 lizard, down to 1 from 3. He is a published author, a deep love for cocktails, which I'd like to talk more about that later, food, and rusty old cars. He is a voracious reader and an avid sketcher and doodler. He serves on the board of advisors at Filk Forge at the Seattle Film Institute. He is thrilled to be alive in the golden age of television, which I just love that. Please welcome Andy to Women in Streaming Media as our November Ally of the Month. I'm personally very excited to have you, Andy, and we are just so looking forward to the Microsoft AI tour that you're going to be giving us today. So thank you very much in advance.
Oh, thanks very much, Lisa. I appreciate that. And we are down to a single lizard, but I am perfectly okay with that. And we can talk about cocktails all you want later.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop sharing right
Perfect.
now.
Yep.
There we go. I'm
Bring
going to let you
mine up.
take over from here.
Thank you. Let's see. Let me make sure I have sound turned on because I think I do have a video or 2 later.
Excellent.
Well, I mean, first of all, just thank you very much for allowing me to be your ally of the month. Truly an honor. Really appreciate it. I do feel like it's an incredibly important thing for particularly the old white men in this industry to try and make sure that we are being held accountable and making room for others and not just following what's always been done. This is very much an industry that has a mindset of it's always worked this way. This is how we're going to do it. And I think now more than ever in the current age, we are learning that we need to rethink the business processes, the work processes, and think more about how we have a diverse and inclusive workforce that's going to carry on as we all hopefully get to retire out of it someday. Uh, I sometimes you mentioned my daughter Davy. I have a daughter whose 14th birthday was um, last Tuesday, and I feel like she's one of the ones that's keeping me most accountable on this. She asks a lot about work, and a lot of her questions are who are the women that I work with, who are the people of color, because she knows the world that she's coming into, and she's constantly checking me to make sure that I'm trying to do my part in it.
That's wonderful.
So these are slides that I have that generally talk about the AI media use cases at Microsoft. I feel like it's always good to do a little bit of explanation of sort of where I sit in relation to things. I don't actually live inside of our product group. We very explicitly keep industry strategies as a separate part of the organization. We're actually more closely aligned with the folks who manage our partner presence because partners play such a important role in all of the industries. Microsoft has 9 prioritized industries, so I'm by far not the only CTO here at all. We have a lot of people who are called CTOs in different roles, but there are 9 of us who sit across these different industry groups, whether it's telco, financial services, healthcare, et cetera. Almost all of us are industry hires. In other words, we don't classically have a background in being a lifer at Microsoft. We come out of doing something in the industry. I built media encoders for a living. I did compression. I have a degree in film and actually would very much call myself a failed filmmaker at heart. And we bring the industry lens to a lot of Microsoft products that are typically horizontal. The same AI technologies that we're using in media are the things that financial services is using in data crunching. And it's what healthcare is using in telemedicine and other various ways. So it's that sort of collaboration with the product team and the industry teams that sort of bring to life what is our story. One of the things that I talk about a lot with the industry as I get to it is that I want them to think about AI as the next technical disruption that they're experiencing, not just a minor bump in some way. It is a fundamental change in the way that they're going to be doing business, going as far back as radio and broadcast as another example of those technical disruptions. This one is all about bringing personalization ultimately to the content, finding broader bases for the content that we're creating, but also creating a hyper-personalized experience, not just what we did in OTT streaming that's sort of in the 15-ish year mark now of being more common practice. It's that blend of AI plus OTT plus really social media that brings it all together, and it's a very much a data driven part of the process. I get asked when OpenAI got announced and the world seemed to stop talking about anything but AI for what felt like a year. First of all, I will say I was very excited that that happened because it meant that I didn't have to have any more conversations about the metaverse for quite a while. And in fact, I'm still not really having to do much of that, and I'm a big fan of that. Uh, So but one of the things that I had to do is I had to start grasping all of the use cases that were out there. AI had been a thing to date that we had just sort of treated as yet another feature that in what we think about technology. So we didn't really dive a lot into it. We just thought of it as like, metadata, and it makes the search easier and some other things. But it really became a matter of having to really break down and think about how we use it. So we began sort of looking at all the different parts of the media supply chain, and we looked at even the more enterprise parts of the business, sort of the business operation pieces that would go into it, and think about how AI began touching all the different parts of those businesses, or those different parts of the business, and then what were we going to do at Microsoft as a company to help with the data sharing across those various pieces. Because one of the things that I think we've all known in the industry for quite a while is that the data is very siloed that we're all working with. And that becomes part of the impediments when we think about AI. The AI that you're using is only going to be as good as the data that you're giving it to work with. It is very much, I think you've probably heard people refer to it as the current rounds of AI that we have are sort of in a toddler phase. And the only way it gets past that toddler phase is really to have more data uh, to help inform its decisions and to help train the pieces that are going into it and to help give the responses that ultimately we need back to do the business. Another hilarious thing that really started happening when people started asking me about, well, what is the Microsoft AI? Give me your AI, as if there was like one box labeled AI that I could sort of pull off the shelf and tell people about. And it very quickly became obvious to me that I really had to sort of break down all the different pieces. The reality is Microsoft has hundreds of AI products that exist in a variety of different ways. And then being a very large and almost much more enterprise focused company, we're also very bad at naming products. And so we often have things that are non-obvious names, or we will have the same names. As a matter of fact, I think I took it out of here, but there was a slide about Copilots, and I think we're up over 90 different products at Microsoft that are named Copilot, because it has become so ubiquitous so quickly for us. And we actually intentionally never trademarked it because Satya wants other companies to feel free to adopt Copilot as the nomenclature that they use, or something in that agent realm as you think about it as an assistant service. So this is a super high level architecture of like what are the products that Microsoft has, and this is not even all of them. In fact, each of those boxes that are on screen, in particular, like if we looked along the cognitive services line, each of these vision, speech, language, there are dozens of SKUs and products that sit behind these that make up the larger portfolio. But I sort of like to lay it out like this because starting at the bottom, this is sort of the very deepest, lowest level of AI. This is where a developer is going to be working directly with machine learning studio or AI studio tools. And maybe they're training a model, maybe they're refining an existing model. They're doing some sort of low level work to create a broader sort of roll your own large language model, small language model, some specific use case that's part of the business. We obviously have a lot of tools for that. The reality is, though, that a lot of customers aren't going to want to do that. They don't necessarily have a whole team of data scientists that are out there to do this work. So we also have things like our applied AI services and cognitive services, and what those really are bundles where we've taken a model and some specific functionality and we've turned it into a specific use case that now has an API that an app developer or someone that's implementing a solution can now go pull in the piece of functionality that they want without having to do the lower level work to do some specific element of it, whether that's a translation service or a face identification or some other piece of it. All of those tools are there and have lots of documentation to go with it to help you get that. The applied AI services are even more sort of formalized as a product. Maybe you just need functionality like I need a bunch of metadata about the video that's coming in. So we have things like video indexer, or we have AI content safety tools. We have a whole suite of tools around just being able to set up guardrails so that you're not accidentally publishing or putting out anything that has violence, sex, nudity, hate speech in it. It allows you to sort of dial in the criteria that you're wanting to flag and keep from being part of the customer experience that you're putting together. And then the highest level on this list are the different app platforms that we have that also use AI, and the applications themselves that now have a lot of AI built into it. This is where you see a lot of those Copilot pieces sort of appearing in our nomenclature. So almost any app at Microsoft that exists now has some version of an assistant helper that can come in, whether it's a Power BI dashboard, so that instead of maybe you need help creating a new either schedule or metrics for tracking the work that's ongoing, or maybe you just need help within the Office suite creating slide decks and outlines and other elements. I used to hate the process of going and creating slides and I would keep all of my slides, like hoard them a little bit, because I didn't want to have to go make a new deck to explain a new thing every time that I met with somebody. Now I'm much more comfortable about it because I'll sit down and sort of freeform notes in a Word document, ask Copilot to turn it into a slide outline, and then ask PowerPoint to turn it into the beginnings of a slide deck that I can then go customize and do the specific things that I want. And that's now a much more comfortable process for me. And it's not the creation of the deck I hated. It's really the starting of the creation of the deck that I hated. Once I get past the point where I'm starting it and I'm just editing it, I usually get I can go much further along with it. One of the big things, and this comes up a lot in as we think about AI really as a tool for inclusion, is the responsibility that goes with being an AI platform. This is one of the things that Microsoft started extremely early on. We have an entire practice and an entire team called Responsible AI at Microsoft. That formed as Azure was starting as a cloud over a decade ago. And the first project they had was to set out the guiding principles that we as a company and that we believe our customers should also adopt as they look at implementing AI into their workflows. And so some of the first pieces that came out were transparency, making sure that you're doing rigorous checks and validations for things like bias and fairness in the models that are being used, making sure that you have the ability to bring in counterfactual, being able to look for discrepancies or identify things that might be either a deep fake or some sort of common language that's trying to coerce a particular sentiment out of someone. So all of those are elements that we have up on our Responsible AI portal. We also publish an annual report. It goes into sort of deeply what we are doing year to year with the AI that we implement. It calls out problems or errors we've seen, biases that we have found in models, even things like undocumented data that might have been in a model, because all of that is very important. We don't expect people to just adopt the technology. We want them to adopt it in an educated and thoughtful way, so that as they're implementing it, they're thinking about the broader implications of what's going on, not just for how they're going to use it, but for how someone might actually try and coerce or change the way that that it makes others think. Another thing I constantly get asked about, and it's called out on this slide, is that when you work with Microsoft, your data is your data. In other words, even though we have over 1,900 models published on Azure, none of the data that is in your subscription is ever being used to influence or change any of those models in any way. You can't actually set it up to do that very intentionally, but that new version of that model or that fine-tuning data that would exist only exists in your subscription for you to be able to take advantage of and to gain value of. So in other words, we can't see what you do in your subscription. We would say we probably don't care what you're doing in your subscription because you it's your business and you have lots of things to be getting on with. But it's important to know that your data is protected, the content that you're putting there is protected through a variety of things, whether it's our MPAA certifications, our SMPTE agreements, and others. We think about how we're approaching both the content that gets stored there and the way that the AI will get used. So I mentioned personalization early on, and I think this is an important part of how we are going to be using AI in media, is to improve overall content discovery. And that is a double-edged sword. I published an article a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn about the role that personalization will play in content and is already playing in content. And I think social media did a very poor job for us in steering too far into hyper personalization too quickly in the way that it was implemented, because it created very much these pockets of thought, where you were only ever being reinforced the values you already think or the elements that that you agree with. And that led to an amazing set of elections over nearly a decade now in my country that I'm still grappling with. But there are elements and there are ways that personalization can still play a difference in this. There's a philosophy within security of a notion of red teams and blue teams. Your blue team is always your defense team. It's showing how to protect the content or the security of the network or the environment that you're in. But then you equally employ often these red teams, which are sort of think of them as like the white hat hackers that are out there trying to break into a system. So they're looking for the vulnerabilities, and the blue team is trying to adapt and respond and bring those protect against those found vulnerabilities. I think there's a similar philosophy that has to continue to adapt and evolve in how personalization is thought about in content discovery, particularly in things like streaming media, because that will be the thing that leads to being able to have a diverse set of opinions or ideas that are brought to the forefront. In other words, you can have versions of the AI algorithms that are constantly trying to reinforce the things that you like. We know you like this. We know you want to see this. But you can also have equally other algorithms that are looking for either uh, not opposing ideas, but new ideas that aren't being shared with you currently, and constantly finding ways to see pieces that into what you're looking at, so that you're constantly getting a small trickle, a reinforcement of new ideas or new things to help think. And because that ultimately is how we find better content. I find myself personally, when I use something like YouTube or even Netflix, I very quickly like it knows what we're looking for as a family or me as a person, and I'm constantly reinforced the same types of content over and over and over again. And I have to go to a Facebook, or used to go to Twitter, but I go more to Instagram these days. But I look outside of it into social networks or other places where my friends' influences can show me new ideas or new things that I can then bring back to the search algorithm to help find more of. And I think the search algorithm itself can bring and influence those ideas in, whether it's trends that are being talked about uh, in the world, or it's things that are just being talked about in social media that are new ideas and new pieces that are coming together. And I think as we see more of that get adopted into it, that's also just a good learning reinforcing way. I think there are ways to use it to identify biases that an individual might have based on the content that they're seeing, and to basically bring in counter programming to help show them where those biases fall apart. If we had more of that, I feel like we'd have a whole different administration in my country that would be helping a lot of us on this side of the ocean deal with. That's the last time I'm going to talk about politics, I promise. It's hard to do this week and last week in our world. So AI improves content discovery. I think there are a number of different ways that it gets used. I've got a couple of different high-level use cases that I'll walk through, but then I'll break down into the broader thinking and tracking that I've done across use cases as they get granularly into things like journalism and episodic work and others. One of the big areas, first and foremost, that I think we're already using a lot of AI tools in here, but now is a time to bring even more AI scrutiny to bear on the archives of content that already exists. We have a lot of content libraries out there. They have often spotty metadata at best that is powering the way that we search and interact with it. And it's really often a lot of tribal knowledge around the content that allows us to know what to do with it. Lisa had mentioned the NBA. I do a lot of work with the NBA. They themselves will be one of the first ones to call out the fact that everybody on the production team will know what game of the season a certain amazing play happened in, and they can go recall that and go pull the content for it. But 2 years down the road, when that player has something similar, it might take them days or weeks to go find that specific clip. And often what they end up having to do is go back and read their own content that they use to publish about it to go find the source or the dates that are associated with it to get to it. That doesn't have to be the way that we interact with this material because we have so much new AI. So we've been working a lot around what we think of as intelligent active archives, which are bringing in sets of data alongside the asset management tools and really coalescing a variety of asset management tools together, whether they're PAMs or DAMs or MAMs. We should be treating the written words, the photos, and the video assets all together as data, because in the world that we're in now, where we have these multimodal language models that have the ability to scan and look at all of those documents the same as we would, we can glean a lot of information very rapidly from it. And then we just need to store it in such a way that we know how to go back and access the specific moments within a clip or within an event, not just the event itself or the object. I don't want to just go find a movie and pull it for someone to do an action on if I really only need a 15-second clip that comes out of the middle of it somewhere. I want to be able to reach in and find that 15-second clip and cleanly pull it out without having to spin up a whole process to go rehydrate some piece of content. So we think a lot about that. And again, that is not a thing that we don't have. Microsoft doesn't have a MAM tool that it sells. We don't have a first-party document management tool. We have a lot of AI technologies for people to go either build their own, or we have a lot of partners in the industry that are doing a ton of work in this space that we work with. And we have a lot of SI partnerships in the space that are doing a lot of work in this space to help create this. So that's why I said it early on that it's important that I'm very closely aligned with the partners in the space. And what I often need to hear from customers are who are the partners they're working with, because there's always sort of a stock set, but there's always a lot of new startups that are doing new things. There are new innovations that are coming along, and it's important to be able to bring those partners along who want to be, or who a customer wants to be part of that workflow, into the space, and then help them add the AI solutions and the data solutions to what they're doing so that they can now react and implement the technology that the end customer ultimately wants. I just realized, by the way, that I can't actually see the chat that's up. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to just jump in. I'm highly interruptible as I go through this. I should have said that. Probably not 40 minutes into the conversation. I am going to jump down because I don't want to belabor all the time. I did want to talk about my sort of matrix or my thinking about how we started breaking use cases down, because what happened sort of 2.5 years ago when we started down this process, there was some conversation where I got asked, well, how many AI use cases can there really be for the media supply chain? And I kept getting challenged to come up with that number, and I was like, it could be hundreds, it could be thousands. We simply don't know, because we're going to be finding new things as we go through. But what I thought would be helpful is early on, I tried to carve up the different parts of the supply chain where I thought AI was going to be used, and that's sort of what's represented here in the bottom. And then we began looking and thinking about what is the AI actually doing with either the content or the data that we're providing it. Is it creating something new? Is it making recommendations? Is it doing some other kind of optimization piece? Or is it some sort of insight analysis, or again, sort of content restriction or safety security elements of it? And so we sort of started using these two pieces as a larger matrix by different parts of the industry, because media and entertainment obviously will mean different things to different people, but I end up talking to uh, newspaper publishers, book publishers, journalists. I talk to movie studios, broadcasters, people who are doing streaming, advertising. All of them fall into that wheelhouse of media and entertainment somewhere at the end of the day. More and more, I'm also getting asked to go weigh in and talk to our gaming customers as well, because ultimately it is another huge form of entertainment, and it so closely aligns with the media workflows that it really makes sense that we all speak the same language. So we started putting together this sort of matrix of like what phase of the process is it in, and then what is it doing with it, and then we just started organizing our thinking around what kinds of UI cases that we were finding, and then we would work with customers to either create pilot projects, some sort of demo, some sort of piece to prove out that individual piece. And then we would think about broadly, how does this impact the other parts of the system? How does the fact that I'm creating closed captions in maybe the delivery phase for live broadcasting, ultimately, how should that be impacting the production? Or how is it going to impact my ability to do some sort of highlight summary on the backside of the post-production? There's data that's shareable there. We just have to think about how we do it as we're building these new workflows. And there's a lot of these different slides. These are sort of all of them. I tend to, when I talk to an individual group, I just bring up the one that's there, but I thought it would be useful to sort of show a broad range of the thinking. These are some published use cases. I'll happily give you guys a copy of these slides that you can share amongst yourselves. I would just ask you not publish it, the whole slide deck, directly on LinkedIn or somewhere else, but I'm happy for groups to have it and share it. Each of these is a clickable use case that goes into explaining sort of how we've leveraged AI to do a specific part of the workflow today. I'm actually in New York this week because I'm speaking at an ESPN Edge Zone conference later today. And that's one of the first ones in cost reduction that we had, where we helped them build out a proof of concept, I believe 2.5 years ago, to automate their live closed captioning systems. They were outsourcing and doing all of that work in a very manual way, with individuals that were doing each, often multiple individuals doing the live captioning of their services. And the reality was that it was incredibly expensive, and there was no way for them to scale it. And they furthermore didn't have a way; they were only able to really keep up with the live content that they were putting out, because there are FCC requirements around that. They couldn't go back and add captioning to all of the content in their archive, which they very much wanted to do. So things were only getting captioned as they were going out live. We built two different sort of sets of a workflow. One that would for VOD offline, where they could create captions automatically and then have an editor go through a dashboard and curate an ID. Again, we always think it's important to have a human in the middle for these services. And then even the live workflow now is, instead of multiple individuals trying to work together to caption something in real time, we have AI services that are doing captionings, and a single operator can sit in front of a dashboard and review multiple video tracks simultaneously, or multiple video feeds simultaneously. And they just provide quick edits where needed to disambiguate pieces that are going into it. They've actually seen the quality of their captioning go way up, because even the reality is even humans are bad at transcription of services. But because we were able to do things like take data sets that already had all of the player rosters and specific language around each of the sports that they were covering on their services, we were able to build that in as sort of an existing vocabulary, so that if there was a disambiguation, there was a cheat sheet that the language model had that it could go look at and quickly go, oh, I heard this, but this is actually the name that was meant, because of the context for the service that I'm in. So again, these are a number of good ones to go through. I would also say the work that Noda is doing is a very interesting case study. They're creating they started as a nonprofit. I believe they still are a nonprofit technically, but they create a number of journalist aid services that use AI in order to help them with their jobs. So I had a couple of different demos, and I'm going to jump straight to them. The first one is really around language and speech, and trying to create closer real-time human voice transcription into other languages. Something that in our world we call zero shot, meaning that I don't give the model any previous examples as training. If I did multi-shot, I would have like recorded my voice multiple times, and it would have that as a basis to then try and recreate a version of my voice saying different words or saying a different language. In a zero shot, it's literally just taking the video that I've given it as an input, and I've told it I now want to go output it as another language. And I gotta duck down the video here so I can see it. So here's just me quickly speaking English. I'll play it, even though you've been listening to me drone on.
And given how
30 minutes now, but this is what we gave the service to be able to translate my voice.
Remote, we all have started working and collaborating, making that.
Okay, and then so we then just fed that in, and all we did was drop an MP4 of that in and asked it to output a version of me speaking German. I don't know if we have any German speakers that are listening.
Think about the concepts of the cloud.
Sorry, it jumped to that one.
Da wir alle zunehmend remote arbeiten und zusammenarbeiten, ist es wichtig, ein zentrales Repository zu haben. Etwas, das den Menschen folgt, ist ziemlich wichtig und deshalb denke ich.
So, our German speakers internally have said that that's a pretty valid and pretty good version of what it got back out. It was very understandable, and it was also contextually correct language wise. We're not just doing a literal word to word translation when we do this. We're actually using a generative AI model to go look at the entire transcript and to make a contextual translation. And a great example that I keep referring to is particularly in Polish, if you were to translate shoot the ball for a basketball game, the first translation that comes up in Bing or Google or anything else is effectively you're saying fire a pistol into the ball. But generative AI can look at the context of what's on screen and what is in the transcript, and it would say throw the ball, which is the more natural thing that someone in Polish would hear. I did have Simon Crownshaw from Microsoft. I wanted to play his voice in English as well, just so that you heard different qualities of voices. He has a very different voice than me. He is British American has a slightly higher pitch voice. I have a lower pitch voice. And so here's the difference in what the model does with again, just this video as an input.
Right, scalability, reliability, security of all those different components, that's never going to be replicated on an on-prem environment at all. Never at the scale and
Okay, and then now you get to hear him speak Korean.
클라우드를 떠올려봐요. 확장성, 신뢰성, 보안 등 다양한 요소들이 있죠. 이런 것들은 온프레미스 환경에서 절대 구현할 수 없어요. 이 조직들이 필요로 하는
Or you can even hear him speak Spanish.
Considera los conceptos de la nube, escalabilidad, fiabilidad, seguridad. Eso jamás se replicará en un entorno local. En un entorno local. Nunca la escala y velocidad.
And given how remote
It's always hard getting out of that.
Hey, Andy, we have a couple questions in the chat before we
Yeah, go
leave
for
that topic. One was, does this allow to select dialects, and how does this handle slang?
Yeah, so the slang is really helped by that generative AI. It has the ability to take context for what is meant and change it as we go to other languages. For example, there are a lot of different languages that simply don't have a notion of idioms, and it would replace the nomenclature that's used in that way. In terms of, I just saw someone ask around the languages that are there. I believe we support over 120 or 130 different languages globally today, and there are a number of different regional dialects that are part of that as well. I will say that we're always finding edge cases, and we're always going to be looking for new dialects to bring into it, or to work with a customer to fine tune for their specific uses. I know right now in particular, I'm spending a lot of time with Middle East customers because there are a wide range of Arabic dialects. We have, I believe, 4 that are covered outside of just sort of a generic Arabic language profile. But there are many more that are out there that the more fidelity that we have for those dialects, the better the quality of the translation that we get on the other side.
Okay, and then that last question was about, does it cause any concerns from a legal point of view, taking voices and translating them?
Sure. Excellent question. And so this is a thing that we worked obviously closely with our folks on, and there are a couple of different elements. So as you're doing this work in Azure, you do have to you have to sign agreements digitally in the tooling that you're using, that you have the rights to the owner of the voice that's there. And I've also trained a model of my voice, so that would be that multi-shot voice that I talked about. And this way I can now, I can even just like type out a script that I want of something and then have it read it in my voice. And we sometimes use that internally for like, I'll do a version of this presentation as a video, and then we'll output it in multiple languages for some of our regional folks. But I had to sign an affidavit in Azure that I was giving them the rights to store my voice, and that I have to go reaffirm that every year. And part of that reaffirmation that I have to do is because legally, once a person hasn't reaffirmed, Azure has to destroy the voice model. And we also have legal clauses in place that at the time of death, you lose the rights to that voice model, even if you're a movie studio that has trained it on a voice actor and you have their rights. You have to have a separate set of rights to deal with it after their death. Any other questions? Okay. I just saw Danny post one. What would you recommend is a good place for people to start stepping into this space and get more hands-on experience and greater understanding? So excellent question. I would say if you're at a small business, that the easiest way there are a lot of AI related programs for startups at Microsoft, and that's the easiest way rather than just sort of wandering around our documentation directly. I'll put some links into the chat, but one of them is called Pegasus. So if you just do a search for Pegasus Microsoft Startup, that's our our standard startup program for helping anybody that is in a small business that's less than 10 years old. That's sort of how we classify startups. To go immediately gain access to tools, get some credits, and start getting documentation to play around. There's another that's an AI focus called the Founders Hub. And this is for someone who maybe doesn't have an existing product yet, but is starting to lead towards some sort of AI related idea that they want to turn into a service or a solution that they may eventually want to put in the cloud in some way, built on our products. And there's a whole set of very AI specific tooling and documentation and access that's there. So that one's called Founders Hub. Similarly, if you just Google Founders Hub, Microsoft, it'll bring up links where you can go join the programs and get started.
I actually have a related question. Like all these fabulous things you talked about, it just for the voice, or does it support to the images as well?
Yeah, so there's a ton of stuff that we have in the image space. In fact, the other video that I won't bother showing here because I know we're short on time is around taking the summarizations of the content and being able to use it to drive either a highlight edit or a highlight version of it. At IBC this year, I had an example of tooling like that being used inside of the streaming app to be able to give me a 15-minute version of the basketball game that was played and explain the different moves and maneuvers that were in the game that I didn't understand as a person, which is great. That's the role AI should be playing. It should be like my private cheat sheet for being able to explain a thing to me in a way that I will understand it, which is great. So I'll make sure that video is in there, and then there are other videos around using it for user engagement and driving other interactive elements as part of either a fast channel solution or a streaming solution as well.
So Andy, I did go out this morning and I did play around with the Copilot tool. So I did create an image, actually. I have a trip next weekend with some friends, and I'm like, it just, said create an image that had these factors in it. And I was amazed at what it was able to do. So that was exciting. But I want to get back to you at the very beginning of your conversation. You started to talk about this is a tech disruption.
Yep.
So can you just speak to what you mean by that in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of different tech disruptions out there. OTT streaming is a tech disruption where we move from broadcast distribution slowly over a number of years to this unicast solution of over what we still call over the top, which really was going over that walled garden that existed in the cable access space for delivery of content. That was very much a tech disruption that was more focused in the distribution realm. We've had other disruptions like things that go on in film, different innovations in film that have changed. Cable itself was actually also a tech disruption of aggregating a number of different hyper personal, or not hyper, but personalized channels of content together in a bundle rather than individual broadcast stations going out. AI is a similar tech disruption, but what's different is it's touching each part of the media supply chain simultaneously. And in fact, it's not just touching our industry, it's changing the way our healthcare relationships work with our doctor. It's changing, the patterns that our kids are learning in school. So it's changing really all parts of our lives simultaneously. And I think that's what caused a lot of the early AI blindness that we experience, because we're used to a disruption changing one part of the tool chain. We adapt and we modify and we move on, and with the innovations that come out of that, it was a little harder, I think, for people to start grasping how they were going to use this long term, because every time you think of a new idea, there's probably some practical or possible way to implement it. And it's a question of, is there ultimately real value in it? So it created this sort of moment where people had to think more about what are the implications of it, and then how do we want to go test and implement it, and how does it, and the part that I keep trying to to preach or reinforce is, how does it impact the other parts of the business around me? What's the halo effect of me having this new set of data that we didn't have before? And how do I share it upstream and downstream from where I am so that we get other global efficiencies in the media pipeline?
So, if we talk about, if you dig into some of the AI stuff and the deep machine learning, there are talks right now that is very smart, and there are some issues you talk about. It's helping kids in school. It's also, I hear around my an area that it's writing kids papers, and it's helping people cheat, so to speak, if
Sure.
you will. But there's a point in time where they say that the AI machine learning will be smarter than humans. So
Mhm.
what does that look like from, like a human being in the workplace and having all of these tools that can do things? And then also, how do we look at protecting, or how do we trust what we get? Because we know there are hackers that are coming in and, doing all kinds of things consistently. And it's just that easy to create an image, so that I could have created a false image of something and start floating it out of something that's not true. So I know I threw a lot at you. So some of the
No,
safeguards
no.
are AI, and then what about the point when the machines are smarter than us?
So it's interesting. I just read an article where someone was trying to chart the IQ of AI right now, which I think is a very incredible hard thing to do. So I question that goes into my next comment, which would be trust but verify. You can have it create things for you, but you want to be able to verify the validity of it. And we can use AI to do a certain level of the validation and the verification, but uh, to your point, as people are using it right now as like a cheating tool, much the way that they use Google as a cheating tool and websites as cheating tools, it becomes very obvious very quickly when you haven't written or when you haven't sourced it. I already know when a LinkedIn post or an email that I get was written by someone's AI. Spoiler alert, no email I have ever gotten has found me well. So everybody should just stop putting that at the beginning of their emails, because it's the first thing that AI and Copilot in particular always hopes that email finds you well. Well, spoiler alert, it hasn't and it doesn't, and stop. Similar exciting news. That's a dead giveaway to me that there's a little AI tucked into that. So part of using AI is getting it to know your voice, not just having it spit something out. One of the things that I did early on, both with Copilot and GPT, because I end up ultimately using both in the work that I do, was I uploaded a series of my papers and one of the books that I had written, and I asked it to just go in and analyze. And I wanted it to give me back a report of what was my style of writing, what was my way of communicating, what was my voice. And then I asked it to create a prompt that I could use anytime I was starting with a new AI service, that I could use to describe my voice to it, so that when I got something back out of it, it didn't sound generic and it didn't sound like AI wrote it. It sounded like I wrote it, because I gave it direct, specific instructions. The more explicit your instructions and your prompts to AI, the better the results you get out, because again, it's the data that you're giving it. So I now have sort of a simple paragraph that is my prompt that I have saved, that is my way of describing to a new service what my voice is. But both GPT and Copilot know what my voice is, and I can now literally just say, give me a summary outline of this, and do it in my voice. And it gives you a very different answer than what that generic stock answer might look like. On the safety and guardrail stuff for like images, there are a lot of different image language models out there, and there's a lot of different services. I can only speak for the ones at Microsoft, which very much lock down your ability to do things. They, by default, DALL-E, which is the one that's in Designer and Copilot, it's very hard to get the same style image twice. In other words, like if you describe like, I want this person, it's going to make very different versions of that person repeatedly as it's showing, because it has a guardrail that basically says don't too closely replicate what you've already done, which makes it very frustrating for people. Like, we got approached by a studio who was like, we're trying to do a pitch deck for a Snoop Dogg video, and we need it to make a Snoop Dogg, and it won't do it reliably. And we're like, well, yes, because you told us you didn't want us to be able to recreate celebrities reliably. And they were like, yeah, but I wanted to be able to do it when I just wanted other people not to be able to do it. I wanted to be able to do it. And so that's the double-edged sword of that safety and security, is you're going to lock yourselves out of things as well.
That makes sense, because I was asking to just make an update. It said, what do you want to change? Because it always ends in the question. And I would do that, and I just get a totally different image. So yeah, I can validate that that's accurate.
There are ways, and this will work. There's what you can call grounding data, and that grounding data is sort of what I did with my papers, where I gave it examples. But you could take the image that you created, you can attach it to the prompt that you're doing, and say, I want this to look more, in red, or I want to add a palm tree here. And that grounding data will help it get closer. It still won't be the same, but it'll be closer than it was if you just went out. Because when you just roll the dice with a new prompt, you're basically, it's like a Yahtzee every time. Who knows what image you're going to get.
Okay, well, I know we are a few minutes past time, and we need to be probably mindful of everybody else's time, including yours, Andy. We do appreciate you spending today with us, and I know I could sit and talk to you for a while.
I talk about this stuff all the time.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to add in to Polly before we sign off today? We
First
have
of
our
all,
women.
great insights, and as you rightly said, we can keep talking about this. Is such an insightful session, and I really want to thank you, Andy, for such an incredible, insightful session on AI. Like, I can't imagine like the amount of features, tools you talked about, and I'm curious like where the industry is going to go with this, because the amount of language support you have mentioned here. I have worked very closely with the studios, and there is always big challenge in terms of subtitling, closed captioning, and creating the dubs for the different regions, which always takes a long time when it is created by humans. And with these tools, I feel like it's going to be an incredible time for the media and entertainment industry to localize their content and reach it to the more wider audience globally. So as we wrap up this session, thank you so much, Andy, once again. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's call. And let's continue to do intentional conversation about how to be a good advocate for the change. Together, we can build a streaming media landscape where everyone is included. And for more discussions and collaborations with Andy, you can connect it on LinkedIn, and you can also write to us on allyship@womeninstreamingmedia.org. A quick reminder, our monthly remote member meetup is happening next Thursday on 21st of November at 9 a.m. PST, 11 a.m. EST, and 4 p.m. GMT. Don't miss this month meetup, because we have always new updates, or we have always new members joining us. And we're going to talk more about what each pillar of women in streaming media is constantly working on. Similarly, your feedback is important, so please do share. I've just pasted the form in the link on chat. And thank you, Andy. And thanks, everyone. See you next month for our Ally of the Month, to meet another awesome champion in the streaming media industry. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.